Alan Miller donated for a whole year on Patreon, and I'm incredibly grateful for his patronage. Well, it's been quite a start this game, and I'm annoyed that I've only just started to hit the record button when we're at turn 5. I don't know, hopefully there'll be more in this game and I can actually show you. So far, I started with a turn 1 Soul Ring into Ophiomancer on turn 2. We managed to sneak down Bloodghast, and we've been abusing it basically with fetches so that we can Skull Clamp it, reanimate it a couple of times every turn, and that alone is 2 to 3 activations or triggers on Sephiroth, and that means that you only have to trigger Sephiroth another once or twice in order to flip it back round. Sephiroth has already been dealt with thanks to Braids and the Feed the Swarm, but we got it out again next turn and flipped it round again straight away. So there's now 2 emblems in play, and we've just been targeting Braids and getting his life total down as far as we can because it's Braids. Yeah, the other 2 players haven't really done anything, fixing the colours over here with Chromatic Lantern. There's Weaver of Harmony, Heralder of the Pantheon, and a Realm Breaker. Braids is about to start his turn. The Sigarda player just seems to be getting flooded. Only 2 cards in hand, has done nothing but make mana. So apart from me going off, which is probably the reason you click the video, you're probably only watching for Sephiroth, but yeah, I'm the only one who's really done anything so far. So hopefully I can continue to show you what's been occurring here. 10 cards in Braids' hand, because no one is sacrificing into Braids. Drew into Vonus Hunger on the previous turn as well. Decided to hold on to it because the more emblems we get in, the better, and I'm just assuming that Sephiroth isn't going to stick in play, but I've built the deck so that we've got lots of sack fodder, and we can hopefully flip it round the same turn it comes out quite easily. Braids is clearly looking at doing something here though. Braids so far has sacrificed the schematic and the servo schematic and the Nimble Right schematic in order to make these tokens. Implement of Malice. That's going to make us discard potentially, although they probably just sack it to Braids and draw. Seems to be more of an artifact build that they've gone after. We're not particularly worried about losing the life to Braids, although the Celestia player is doing something in response. Oh, just cracking the Croson Verge to make even more mana. The fewer lands he has in the deck, the more likely he is to draw into them, I suppose. But if you just play Sigarda and drop some auras onto it, he's not going to be very happy to see our Accursed Marauder. It's a bad matchup for him. Anyway, does sacrifice the Implement of Malice, and therefore draws a card once to that and probably 3 times to all the other players. So it does have no max hand size thanks to a Reliquary Tower, and ends the turn with 13 cards in hand. But by turn 5 we've got him down to 16. Out comes Sigarda, Host of Herons for the first time. Noteworthy that with Vonus Hunger it's half the creatures are sacrificed, but it's rounded up, so obviously it's only 0.5 of a creature is half, but rounded up they will have to sacrifice this. Alright, so we are allowed round to our next turn. Rankle is going to be a good one, I think. We just need to get Cabal Coffers into play. I've been umming and ahhing for the past couple of turns when I can get down the Cabal Coffers, because I've been messing around with the fetches and Bloodghast in order to get these emblems. So we'll get our bit of sack fodder into play, and now we can make 5 mana, 10 mana in total. Do we need to get down the Rankle? I don't think we necessarily do, although flying over here for damage would be good, and making this guy discard could be good as well. Yeah, so let's go like that with Cabal Coffers. Rankle, Master of Pranks, and I think I'd like to start going off with Yawgmoth as well, so I think there's spot removal being held up here. If he goes after Yawgmoth, then so be it. It's not going on Sephiroth at least. That leaves us with 3 mana after tapping down the rock. And now we'll go through to combat. And I think I'm not going to sacrifice anything into Sephiroth now that we've got the Yawgmoth in play. I'd rather hold on to the sack fodder. But I am going to continue to bully the Braids player in the air. So that is half of his life total going down to the flyers. So I'll just say no to the ability. I think I did sacrifice a snake on a previous turn to draw a card to that. It is going to be useful once the board is absolutely flooded with creatures, but we've been very lucky at keeping hold of Skull Clamp here, so along with Yawgmoth we can just draw as many cards as we want pretty much. Looks as though Braids is taking the damage surprisingly. So with Rankle, I think I will sacrifice, let's go for discard, and let's go for each player sacrifices a creature. We will sacrifice the snake because we can remake it into Yawgmoth anyway. So we can discard the Sat's Will. Isn't doing too much for us, I don't think. It's really in here for all the thralls and sack fodder. Good to be able to get rid of players' graveyards with that. But we've got enough edicts available to us as well, I think. So for 5 mana, I'll just give up on it for now. I want as few a number of cards in Sigarda's hand as well, if I can disrupt that any. We sacrifice the snake, like I said. There's Reassembling Skeleton, he can easily get out again. A Spectral Steel, and a Summon Anima. So many cards I've missed from Final Fantasy. I never had time to just sit down and look at all the spoilers. So there's certain cards that I didn't know they'd done an Anima. Anyway, bunch of creatures die during combat and the edicts. So how many have we got there? 6. We're taking Braids down to 2 here. And this player has decided to give up on us, because he just ended up losing his Sigarda as soon as it came out. Like I said, it's a really bad matchup for him. And yeah, looks as though we're just going to get Chain Scoops here now. I was pointing out before that the Forsaken Miner is good, because it triggers every time we target with the emblems, and the emblems do target. So we can go infinite with something like the Pitiless Plunderer or the Phyrexian Altar, and just constantly sacrifice this for a black mana, reanimate it when the emblem targets, and get it back into play, sacrifice it again, etc. and so forth. Yeah, looks as though I'm not going to be able to show you this one because I missed all the action in the early game, so I don't even know who I'm talking to now. Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier, versus a Tarkir, Marneus Calgar, and Jeru. Just checked and I have hit the record button this time, so yay to me. In our opener, yeah, Bitter Blossom really early. Got sack fodder for Rankle then, so yeah, we're curving out quite nicely there potentially. Wayfarer's Bauble by the mono white player. We are last in the turn order. Just some tap lands from our other opponents. There's Toxic Deluge. If we have Sephiroth dealt with too quickly, then we can wipe the board and buy ourselves a bit more time, assuming our opponents play into that. Crack the Wayfarer's Bauble over here has mixed up his basics, and Orzhov's Signet for the middle player. Zulaport Cutthroat. We've got quite a low curve deck here, so yeah, we'll get the high market out. I was waiting quite a few turns on the previous game to actually get out a sack outlet in the form of the high market. So play the Bitter Blossom, start getting fairy tokens out next turn. Ash Barrens has been basic land cycled and then played the land straight away. And after that it is Restoration of a Ganjo, so search for a basic plains, put it into hand. And next turn he can discard. If he does, return a permanent with mana value 2 or less from graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So probably goes after the Ash Barrens with that. Although with that he could discard a 2 mana creature or something and get it into play for free. Anyway, the first 40k card is Company Commander, and still has 3 opponents by some stroke of luck, so enters with 3 soldier tokens. Tarkir still not doing anything. We get our first fairy token, and we get into more card draw. We're going to draw a card into Sephiroth if we play it here, so we might get into a swamp. We'll at least get closer to one. Name human with the Cavern of Souls, because we've got quite a few humans in the deck. And the client's starting to lag now for some reason. So we've got 6 cards in hand, let's go up to 7 by playing Sephiroth. So that's the first Aristocrats trigger, and we'll go in at the Marneus Calgar, seeing as how he's going off quicker. And still no land for us for turn 4. We do get into Throne of Eldraine though, so I think it's going to have to be Night's Whisper next turn, try and get into that swamp. Although we do have another chance of drawing a card into Sephiroth next turn off the fairy, so just have to see what happens during the next turn cycle. Saga discards an Oath of Gideon, so can't reanimate that. Does go after the Ash Barrens. 5 cards in hand, 5 mana available. This is going to become a 3/4 next turn with flying, I think. No, vigilance. Whenever it attacks or blocks, make a spirit. And there is Thematic Compass. He's definitely focused on making sure he's got enough mana. Plays and activates Tome of Legends for a card draw. So ends the turn with 4 in hand. Teysa, Opulent Oligarch. And an Intangible Virtue to give vigilance and +1/+1 to the tokens. So we need to get our Aristocrat and Edict Vex going. I dare say all this is going to come in at us. Nope, he's spreading the damage going in at... We've got 1 creature coming in at us. It gains Death Touch from the Company Commander. The other one's going into the right as well, so 2 damage taken by us. And the sky goes down to 36. And then each opponent lost life this turn, so it makes 3 clue tokens to the Taser. The Esper player doing well. A Chaos Warp onto our commander. Let's hope that we get into something good here. That's funny. We end up with Dreadhorde Invasion. That's a pretty good trade out actually. So we're going to continue to lose life, but we want plenty of sack fodder in this list. But that's one less chance of getting into the land we need. Unless we can draw it here, which we do. So now I think it's Zulaport Cutthroat and Night's Whisper anyway, because it would be good to be able to get down the Throne of Eldraine. We're just setting up our commander, but we might be able to get into a sack outlet and flip it round straight away. So let's just have a look at what we draw into with the Night's Whisper first. Alright, we've got some spot removal there. Another land is good. So let's get down the Cutthroat. And that leaves us with 7 in hand, which is good. The Saga successfully transformed, so yeah, 3/4 Vigilance makes spirits. Noteworthy that you do exile and have these re-enter, so they do not just flip round, they re-enter with Summoning Sickness, which is just going to make them even slower. But Jeru enters and puts another plus counter on the Tome. And then the Planeswalker he tutored out is Ugin the Spirit Dragon. So that's exile on our stuff we don't want to see. And he can actually afford the Ugin next turn, which is noteworthy. Noteworthy he's dropped Command Tower, which is curious, so I wonder if he... Yeah, he's obviously after going for Field of the Dead in this deck, I think. 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 different land types, so he will be online for that. The Esper player has a vested interest in getting rid of this guy before that Ugin does too much damage as well, so hopefully all this will swing in there, although he needs to maximise the amount of damage for Taser. So that goes into the right. Company Commander comes in at us, and then all the tokens to the left. We might as well just chump with an army token here, because we're not going to get more than 1 army token to the Dreadhorde Invasion. The Architect of Restoration is blocking a soldier token, so makes a spirit, and then decides to remove from combat the Taser with the freshly flipped Spires of Arazka. That was the artifact that came down before. Alright, so one of our creatures died, means Zulaport Cutthroat triggers on each opponent. We only gain 1 life though. And the Saga has ended up in the bin thanks to the Death Touch. I can't show you, but use your imagination. Magic Online sometimes doesn't want us to see graveyards. Taser triggers at the end step. Noteworthy that he's holding up some mana here, going through to the next player's turn. And makes a couple of clue tokens to that. I'm thinking next turn we're going Throne of Eldraine. This will tap for 4 mana, I think. Yeah. So we can hold up the Fell the Profane ready for Ugin. Ugin will come down and minus itself, but probably take out all the creatures with it, so probably going to be worth blowing that up. And then it's tokens that are going to be facing down the Planeswalkers, so 1 damage being prevented by the Jeru is going to make it difficult to get rid of the walkers, which is obviously the whole idea of this list. A Tarkir continuing to struggle, that's a cool new one. Suplex from the Final Fantasy set. 3 damage to a creature, and exile it. That goes on to the Taser. Cracks a clue token into that to make a spirit. Only decided to crack 1 clue token before Taser gets exiled. Oh, the ability only triggers once a turn, so that makes sense. He was obviously holding up the mana, looking to do that during each turn of the entire cycle. Now it is time for us to make some more tokens. Alright, Verdant Catacomb we can abuse Bloodghast with, so we hold on to those for as long as we can, just in case. Let's ramp with the Throne of Eldraine. And with that, I think it's going to be the right move to hold on to that Fell the Profane, destroy a creature or walker. So just pass at that, I think. We'll hold back blockers. I don't imagine that we're holding on to any of these permanents through the next turn, so maybe should have swung him. Swings in to the right with the Jeru. He can have Jeru survive. This is 4 mana, and that's the highest coloured permanent. Also wants to put a counter on the Tome of Legends. He's got 7 cards in hand, doing well for a mono white deck. Decides to draw a card with that. And makes another land, which is Labyrinth of Skophos. And there is Elspeth Conquers Death, so holding up Fell the Profane, not the right thing apparently. Goes after our Throne of Eldraine, so let's blow up something of his. If we go for this, it'll make it more easy to get rid of his walkers. Unfortunately, he can recast it and tutor again, but I mean, that's swallowing up his turns. His mana isn't that good. So I think we do just go after his commander in response to that. Another clue token being cracked, and probably goes for it again here. Before his turn starts, draws 2 cards, goes up to 6. Will be 7 during his draw step. Space Marine Devastator. When it enters, destroy an artifact or enchantment. I'll be going after the Elspeth Conquers Death personally. And that is what he goes for. And also, because we cleared out the Jeru, that means that he can be attacked in more easily. So I'd be focusing on the white player personally. I wouldn't be dealing all that much damage to anyone else. Looks as though we've got a couple of creatures coming in at us though. Spires of Arazka. Just remove something from combat. So the company commander goes into the right and we get the 2 things here. So let's chump. And that will trigger the Zulaport Cutthroat. I'm just going to leave the fairies in play. And that of course drains everyone with Zulaport. Puts us up to 32. This game's going way worse for us than the last one. Alright, decides to give up after only getting into 3 lands. Okay, Solemn Simulacrum. I think I want to concentrate on ramping here, as boring as it is. We're just being held back by this Ugin really. But Solemn can draw as a card if we decide to chump again as well. Play the Verdant Catacombs as well, nothing to do with 2 mana, but we can hold on to that if we don't want to crack it, if we don't need to crack it. So let's go all of these into the left. I'll show this player that we're looking over here as well. Probably should have held up the high market actually if Ugin is a threat, because we can sacrifice Zulaport Cutthroat to it, ready for grabbing out of the bin. Ugin the Spirit Dragon. We finally get to see play, but after our Fel the Profane has gone down, so they have to go -4 here really, but they will get to keep the Spirit token, which is colourless. Yeah, so -4, they go down to 3. We'll keep the Solemn. Need to see some haste over here really, although we've got Rankle here for evasive haste as well, so should be able to deal with that okay. Or actually no, they can protect it with this, can't they? But this is going to be a good opportunity for us to get down the Tevesh Sat as well. The Sanguished Unmaking, so that means we don't have to go for Rankle next turn. Probably after the wipe, it is the Tevesh Sat then. That's the problem with tutoring something up. Everyone starts waiting for it and holding up the removal and the like. Manius Calgar into play. Can they make any tokens here? They can next turn. Bitter Blossom instantly brought back into play, but on our opponent's side of the field. Right, Insatiable Avarice is 5 mana. To draw 3 cards, including a tutor. Let's get down the Tevesh Sat, I think, and make a couple of Thrall tokens with it. No evasion on this yet, so I think we're fine to just use the Thralls as a chump. I'll try and get rid of that Spirit token so that it can be difficult with Maze of Ith type effects when you're trying to get past tokens, but yeah, obviously decides to use it here because we are the last player. Sometimes players will F6 through the turn accidentally and not get a chance to use those. But when you've got Maze of Ith style effects and blockers in play, it's going to be difficult to get rid of the Planeswalkers. Another Ugin is going to make the colourless spells cost less. Destroys the Manius Calgar straight away. We're seeing a depreciation of the cards in hand at least. Getting rid of Jerry was definitely a good move because he's not drawing cards with this anymore. And decides to get another Walker into play. Look at the top 7 cards. You may put a permanent with mana value 3 or less from amongst them onto the battlefield. We don't have any flyers with our Bitter Blossom anymore, unfortunately. There is a Palantir of Orthanc. Okay, and they got the Scry too. We will not let them draw here. See how much life we lose. Lost 5 life to that, so yep, Gideon Jura. Played Zephyrim this time and decided to squad that a couple of times, so Flying and Vigilance on a bunch of 3/3s. No haste though, but hopefully that will be able to start dealing with Planeswalkers quite nicely. I'm not going to bother sacrificing Solemn here, although there's an argument for doing so. We draw into another Swamp. We've got a 3 mana Tutor if we want it, but it only goes on top, so we kind of have to draw the cards with that. We could draw it with Tevesh Sat, or even with the Solemn. But then we'd only have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 mana left. I'm thinking we just get down Rankle here and deal with the Elspeth. So yeah, let's do that. I think I'll play a land, crack the Verdant Catacombs, and then we can go for the Dire Site. That'll put more cards in hand and we can get a more informed decision on what we're going to discard and whether or not we're going to draw to Solemn. Alright, well, Skull Clamp is an obvious keep. Demon's Disciple, I don't think really helps us. So that goes into the graveyard. And Skull Clamp goes on top. We draw into it along with another card. Alright, a Drivnod. I think I want to sacrifice another creature and draw 2. We'll draw 3 to Solemn. And that got us into Reassembling Skeleton, a land, and Jack Medallion. Okay, so in that case, I don't think I'm going for the Edict, because I don't want Tevesh Sat to go down, although these are flyers, aren't they? So if they want to deal with it, they can. Let's definitely get rid of Elspeth, even though we're encouraging those flyers over to our Tevesh Sat then. I don't want this guy to get another turn with it. And actually, do we have to deal damage to a player? Yeah, it has to be to a player in order to get the triggers off anyway, so playing around discard and stuff never really mattered. But having a Flying Haster is well worth having in the deck alone for things like that. So nothing else to do, full grip of 7, let's pass the turn. But we're still doing nothing during this control-y game of Commander, doing nothing with our Planeswalker. A loyalty counter after the plus being moved onto the planes. He did that with the Nesting Grounds. Hour of Revelation is destroy all non-land permanents, so if I wasn't F6 there I would have sacrificed the Rankle to the high market to gain a life. The card from Ugin goes into hand, so he's got 4 in hand now. But yeah, you always have to expect board wipes with Super Friends. After which it is a Sanctuary Warden, so obviously we'd like to have been going a lot faster with Sephiroth and getting emblems down before now. But it's just one of those games that isn't going to play into our hand. Palantir I will say yes to this time, unfortunately. So they can draw that one card. Thunderwolf Cavalry and a Prince Imrahil. So now I'm wondering, before this thing becomes too much of a problem with its shield counter, are we going to Toxic Deluge straight away for 5? Going below our starting life total. Play the Swamp. Play the Jet Medallion to make our black spells cost less. Which means it's a 2 mana Toxic Deluge, and it's 4, 2, yeah, so this is 5. Got 5 life into that. Takes us down to 17. Hopefully we'll start gaining some life at some point this game. Let's go Reassembling Skeleton, and replay our Sephiroth, ready to get blown up again. Suppose we could go Skull Clamp instead. We'd only have 2 mana then, but either way we can reanimate Reassembling Skeleton. We'll just have to hope that none of the graveyards get exiled, because I do want to try and get Sephiroth doing something this game. So get rid of the skeleton and drain the white player once. Draws us into a sack outlet with your Henny. We could have done with way before now. But like I said, this has been a control game where we're not keeping our permanents in play regardless. This is why the emblems are so important. Now with the Maze of Ith effects, the Sephiroth is an attack trigger, so whether it's removed from combat or not doesn't matter, we'll still have those resolve. A Soulguide Lantern. What did I say about graveyards being exiled? So it goes after the Skellies straight away. And then cracked it for a card draw, I think. Yeah. And he's got Castle Ardenvale. He's got Minas Tirith. Jeru comes into play again, ready to set up next turn with some obnoxious Planeswalker. I think it's going to have to be a tutor for something next turn in order to get the sack fodder underway again. And he's got 6 cards in hand. What did he tutor for? Went after Gideon of the Trials. So preventing all damage a permanent would deal. Or he can get an emblem. As long as you control a Gideon, you can't lose the game. Okay. Yeah, we'll just have to let him draw again. Only 3 cards left in the Esper player's hand. And he's just copying us over here. He's got a Skull Clamp as well. Throws out the Marnius Calgar, 1 card left in hand. And we want to draw into something really good here because we've now lost the Reassembling Skeleton. And it's just a swamp. So maybe we go for Bloodghast. Yeah, I think we have to go 5 mana into this. Actually only 4 mana into that because it costs 1 less. Yeah, we want the Edict effects, but we're not getting into them and we need this sack fodder as well. So we're not doing well on either front. I think it has to be Bloodghast because we can make use of the Skull Clamp and try and get into the Edicts then. So let's try that. We can always draw into something relevant like a Cursed Marauder as well. Okay, there's Feed the Swarm. We're just losing so much life this turn, or during this game. Go for Bloodghast. Was hoping to see something like the Grave Pact or something. Play the Skull Clamp as well. Clamp on the Ghast. And again, I'm just not going to play around the fact that we'll see Graveyard Hate, because we need to catch up. A Soul Shatter might be worth doing here. So play the Swamp, although this can force our opponent to sacrifice walkers as well, so maybe we hold on to it. Yeah, let's accelerate our mana a little bit with Felwar Stone, then we can equip up the Bloodghast again. And again, we're leaving it in the bin, but we're looking at more cards as well. And the more cards we get into, the more Edicts and Sack Fodder we see. Back up to 17. And Urza's Cave can hopefully go and fetch us the Cabal Coffers. So, yeah, I'm not going to bother swinging in here. Discard a Swamp. Depending on how much the white player can do here, we might be beginning to claw it back. We've seen one of his best Planeswalkers dealt with already. Jeru swings in at us. I'm sure he's very keen to get rid of us. And another Wrath. So, Sephiroth triggers twice at least. So we'll get to take this guy. He just gains some life from the Fumigate. Take him down to 25. We go up to 15. And it's Elspeth's Son's Champion. Speaking of board wipes, gonna tick up on that for some soldier tokens. And again, draw a card from the Palantir of Orthanc. But this is where having a big walker in play is good with the Soul Shatter, forcing them to sacrifice that. Reanimate goes on to the Angel. Yeah, the Sanctuary Warden. So I'm going to lose 6 to that, but get an Angel into play. And he too decided to remove a counter from it to draw a card. So gets the Citizen token, and that is perfect for the Skull Clamp. Plays Kambal, Profiteering Mayor, which is good against both opponents. We're each looking to make tokens apparently. Deciding with 2 cards in hand to clamp the Mayor. It is a Shizo, Death's Storehouse. We can't get through with attacks very well anyway. Play the Urza's Cave, we'll reanimate the Bloodghast. No one's at a low enough life total to give this haste. But do we want to play out the Sephiroth here? 6 mana, I think. Yeah. So we'd have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana left over after that. 4 mana if it's Urza's Cave being cracked. So that's, yeah, 2 mana left over for the Soul Shatter, I think. So yeah, that should be fine. So Sephiroth comes in, we sacrifice Bloodghast. This comes straight into play tapped. We'll reanimate Bloodghast. Sacrifice it a second time. Yeah, we can't do that. There's no sack outlet in play. But the Soul Shatter might help us get there. Whatever, let's just go for sacrificing Bloodghast to draw. Continuing to point and focus on the white player. A Genesis Chamber is going to be helpful, but we'll want to do it during our next turn when we know we're set up to start going off. So let's go for Soul Shatter here. So that gets rid of the Sanctuary Warden and the Elspeth's Son's Champion. Triggers the Sephiroth for a second time. And we can't get the 4th trigger, unfortunately. But I think I definitely want the Cabal Coffers, so we can do this at instant speed. Yes, we can, so we might as well hold that up. Just awaiting another board wipe from the white player, really. All the soldiers coming at us. So they could have something like, you know, destroy a target blocking creature or something. And for that reason alone, I'm just going to risk taking it and hope that they can't buff these. Knock us down to 14. Wouldn't you know, it is another Wrath. You get an amount of energy equal to X. Destroy each artifact, creature, enchantment with mana value X or less if you pay the energy for it. So everything gets blown up. Ironically, Sephiroth gets 4 triggers on it there. But this is where Cabal Coffers is going to come into its own next turn. The Skull Clamp triggered for this player as well when the Mayor went down, so he's going to get 2 more cards. We go back up to 18. We've drained this player down to an equal life total. So we are bleeding him out very, very slowly. See that Gideon? Alright, so that's a different Gideon. Makes an ally token. Birth of the Imperium makes a Vigilance token when it comes in. And then it is another Edict. So we'll have to try and keep Bloodghast in play for that. I mean, we don't have Skull Clamp to abuse now anyway. Oh, it's a token for each opponent, so he gets a couple of those. And snap, he gets Gideon, ally of Zendikar in as well. Genesis Chamber is really going to help the Esper player to draw cards, so I'm not sure if I'm going to play that next turn or not. We do want lots of sack fodder. 2 cards in hand. He is holding up Esper mana, so an offer you can't refuse. Swords to Plowshares, all the typical cards. Fetch Cabal Coffers, ready for our next turn here. And that triggers the Bloodghast, ready for our next turn as well. Don't think being able to swing with that is going to be relevant, but having it in play already might be. Okay, a Pitiless Plunderer. We can't quite combo off with anything. This is where it's relevant that the Reassembling Skeleton went down previously after I left it in the graveyard in my haste. Now, do we want to make use of the landfall with Bloodghast? We've got 8 mana on Cabal Coffers, plus 9 once I've made a land is 17. The Commander alone costs 9, so I think we want to maximise Bloodghast. Let's go for Cabal Coffers being activated now. Get down the Pitiless Plunderer, priority being held up by the white player. Sephiroth, that'll leave us with 3 mana after this for the Henny. We're not doing any of this into the Genesis Chamber like I said, because I'm worried about the Esper player making more use of it than us. So down that comes, Bloodghast gets sacrificed. Couldn't have got through with attacks anyway. Triggers the Sephiroth, and the Pitiless Plunderer makes us the first treasure token. Alright, and there's Plaguecrafter. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, but it's of their choice, so plenty of tokens to sack into it. We definitely want to make a land, so let's go for the Swamp to bring back the Bloodghast. And we want to use the Bloodghast as sack fodder for this saga, so we don't want to sack it again here. But we could just use Plaguecrafter as a means of flipping the Sephiroth around, which I think is what we'll do here. And if we see Planeswalkers go down, then so be it. It means that we're not necessarily flipping around Sephiroth, but we are getting rid of walkers. This is what I said in the deck tech, that it might be against your ultimate tactics, but if you want to get rid of walkers, then it kind of puts your opponents between a rock and a hard place. So Sephiroth triggers another couple of times. I actually haven't kept count very well of how many times it's triggered now. I think this is the 3rd time. Yeah, it hasn't transformed here, so missing that Reassembling Skeleton. Do we go for your Henny here? I think we can play your Henny, but not sacrifice Bloodghast and flip round Sephiroth. We'll just have to try and do it next turn. Maybe with the Genesis Chamber. I'm just fully expecting to see another board wipe from this player, and all we're ultimately looking to do. Maybe it'd be worth getting down the emblem while we've got the chance, I suppose. Yeah, I think we're best just taking the emblem while we've got the chance, so get rid of Bloodghast after all. And we'll just have to sack Pitiless Plunderer or something. So he does transform for the first time this game on turn 12. Unlike the turn 4 or 5 flip that I got off it, I'd had multiple emblems by a third of this time in the last game. But we've got an emblem now, and it will trigger to any creature dying, and this player's at 15, so he needs to be careful. No point swinging in with your Henny, and if we see another board wipe, we can at least give it indestructible, because we're going to lose our stuff anyway, although your Henny would go down to that Edict. So at that point, there's an argument for sacrificing Pitiless Plunderer now for a couple of mana. Feed the Swarm goes on the Saga. All depends on how confident we are of this guy having his 5th board wipe or whatever it is. Super Friends, always incredibly grindy to play against. It's funny because the Gruul player has actually had plenty of time to play the game out and get into the mana that he was desperate for. He may well have got back into the game here. And Urza's Silex. 4-tap exile, each player chooses 6 lands they control, destroy all other permanents. Wow. This is bracket 3, bear in mind, so there shouldn't be any MLD. But whatever, the grind continues. Some players just want to win at all costs, I think. And he is likely going to pay the 2 into that to search for a Planeswalker. 6 lands, all the other permanents are going to die. So we might as well sacrifice with the Henny, the Sephiroth, just so that Pitiless Plunderer can see it go down. Don't think the treasure mana isn't relevant anyway, is it? But we're triggering the emblem. This is why I decided to take it. And he is going to be able to afford his Gideon of the Trials after this wipe as well. So let's just crack these for mana. Probably not going to be relevant, but you never know. So apparently the play was to sacrifice things to your Henny, take the treasure mana and blow up the Edict there. So we choose 6 lands we control. I want to choose these correctly. Each player chooses 6 lands, destroy all other permanents. Okay, so we want Cabal Coffers and all of our swamps. or 5 of them. Triggers the emblem. Oh, of course, if all other permanents are going down, the Saga isn't in play anymore, is it? Dirt. So your Henny getting buffed and making use of its indestructible. 4 emblem triggers to the left, and 3 triggers is 3+ counters on your Henny. Now our life total bumps up to 27. We finally got this guy below 10, so that Bloodghast might be relevant now with its haste. That was more of a standard ability back in the day, but could be relevant in this Commander game now. Gideon of the Trials, and ticked up on that. Prevent all damage a target permanent would deal. Obviously goes on the Henny. A Prayer of the Steel Legion. And is that 3 mana to activate? 4 mana, so unfortunately, thanks to the Mass Land Destruction, our opponent can't even afford to activate this. He might be able to make some tokens at instant speed, although we haven't seen evidence of that yet. Okay, Wayfarer's Bauble. God, how much is our commander now? Like 11? Yes, it is 11 mana. So we've got play Shizo. I think we definitely need to look at Necropotence here. Bloodghast re-enters play. Cabal Coffers makes 5, plus 4 is 9. So that's definitely Necropotence. How many do we have to exile with Drivnod? 3 creature cards. Surely we've got 3. Yes, we do just about have 3. So I think it's Drivnod, Necropotence and Wayfarer's Bauble. Let's swing him first. I'm just going to go straight in at face at this point. Encourage him to make that emblem. And then as soon as his Gideon Planeswalker goes down, hopefully he'll lose the game when he's at 0. I think making the emblem while we had the chance was definitely the right idea. So knock him down to 7. Cast ourselves a Drivnod. Get down Necropotence and the Bauble. And then I'm just going to put 7 life into Necropotence here, and we can discard and exile some stuff from hand. Okay, a Mortify in response going on to the Necropotence is fine, because we can just play at instant speed here. So activate it some more. That's 4, 5, 6, and 7 will still have this resolve even though the permanent isn't in play anymore. In fact, we could put a little bit more life into it so that we discard to hand size, discard some stuff that's relevant that we can reanimate. It won't get exiled anymore, thanks to our opponent's removal of the exile clause there. So I'll put a few more life in. Don't want to get too greedy. So there we go. We'll just go down to 17. Down goes the... and then through to the end step is where we will get the cards in hand. So however many that was, 5, 11 I think. There's Will of the Abzan. Can return a creature from graveyard to the battlefield, so hopefully we won't have to exile and give indestructible with Drivnod. There's a Sack Outlet, Living Death, so Drivnod being a little bit of a nombo. Sacks Will. Cares about the greatest power of creatures. Yeah, I'm not sure how relevant Nykthos is going to be. Let's get rid of 5 cards here. Unfortunately, I think double triggers on Masamune could be relevant. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of Feed the Swarm, Genesis Chamber. Jadar is good. Sack Fodder for us. Let's get rid of Masamune. I don't think Living Death is going to be relevant because we're going to have to exile stuff from our graveyard, I think. And then one more. Let's say that we play Nykthos next turn. Yeah, we've got plenty of other swamps to draw into. I suppose what I could have done there was loaded up the graveyard to hand size with creatures, sacrificed everything, and then gone for Living Death next turn. Anyway, our opponent has gone for the Gideon Emblem, as we assumed he would. Solemn Simulacrum for the white player. Noteworthy, he has access to a Mistveiled Plains to put those board wipes back on the bottom of his library. It's so funny that our opponent keeps playing the cards that are in our hand. Makes total sense to have Ophiomancer in a list like this though. So Ophiomancer makes the first snake. And there's a Sol Ring for us, so what order do we do things in here? Maybe it's Dictate of Erebos to get blockers out of the way, then we can deal with Gideon, or go part way to dealing with Gideon. He's only got access to this, unless he can remove something. Or we could go Will of the Abzan, in order to have him lose life as well to the Edict. So we take out Ophiomancer and Solemn with that, which isn't the worst. Let's get down the Sol Ring. Then Cabal Coffers will add 5, which is Will of the Abzan and Carrion Feeder or something else. Yeah, I think that's fine to do it now. We don't have our commander in play, as is the story for the entire game here, so choose both of our opponents, and that is 2 shots on the emblem. Each of our opponents loses 3 life to that as well, just mainly focused on this guy that wants the game to last longer than turn 14. Your Henny gets bigger. You won't lose the game until that Gideon goes down though, so he's not necessarily dying this turn. So then with 1 mana, what do we want to do? Get Jadar into play, I think. And we could play the Ophiomancer. Then we'd have Devotion of 2, 4 and 6, so we could still go for the Dictate with Snake tokens, and a sack outlet is good. So get that down. And I'm not going to play around with this Gideon, I'm just going to swing everything in towards it. Might be that there's spot removal and stuff to consider, so just take everything in over there. If they can remove 1 from combat and spot remove the other, then that would be ideal for them. Okay, but they do end up losing the Gideon, so hopefully don't have another one. In fact, do we just not give them another turn here? Let's play the Nykthos, make 6 mana for the Dictate of Erebos. And does Jadar trigger at the end of the turn? Yes it does, so we can get down Jadar. We're playing into a board wipe for the Esper player here, but he's only got 1 card in hand. So go through to that end step. We've got the Snake at the upkeep for Ophiomancer as well. So Jadar triggers, and before we pass, we want to sacrifice the zombie token to the Yahenni. Now, we get double Dictate triggers, we do not get double Emblem triggers with Drivnod, which might mean that this isn't worth having, because it is pretty expensive in a deck like this. It cares about permanence, and emblems are not permanents, but we do get double triggers from Dictate, like I said, so both of those creatures are going down, and each will trigger the emblem. So we got there eventually. I apologise that I didn't record the first game, but I imagine I've referred to it enough, so I'll probably just shoehorn it in at the beginning of this video and give you a better idea of how fast the deck can go if it's not being controlled like crazy. So finally, by turn 14, get rid of the white player. I've still got 20 life to deal with over here, so there could be a good top deck from this guy, but I'm hoping he's not going to easily be able to keep hold of creatures. And if he can't keep hold of creatures, we just knock him out with big power next turn, I think. Yeah, Henny ends up at a 13-13, and we make the Snake, which is great with Dictate and a sack outlet, like I said. Jadar covers the end step, Ophiomancer the upkeep, and you'll never guess what this guy decided to play. An Hour of Reckoning, destroy all non-token creatures, so we can keep the Snake at least. Let's see, yeah, Henny gains Indestructible, so this doesn't really matter. Sack Ophiomancer, triggers the emblem. And you can imagine if you have multiple emblems by turn 15 in a regular game, well, you'd be zapping your opponent's life totals really quick. So your Henny now has Indestructible, sacrifice Jadar as well. And then Drivnod is going to exile 3 creatures, and we'll just pay 4 life for that because it's Phyrexian mana. And with Drivnod it can be Solemn, Rankle, and we'll just make it the Demon's Disciple as well to put the Indestructible counter onto it in exchange for the 4 life. So we only end up losing Bloodghast here once the board wipe resolves. And it triggers the emblem again when it dies. But our opponent's down to 0 cards in hand, so he's continuing to play it out. But obviously he knows he goes down next turn. Okay, an Ancient Tomb. That doesn't matter. Let's just go straight through to combat. Our opponent is valiantly playing it out, so we won't disrespect his time. And there we go, down to -6. So yeah, that was a hell of a grind, wasn't it? A massive contrast to that first game that you just saw the tail end of. Honestly, in the gameplay you didn't really miss much in that first one. It was just abusing Bloodghast and Skullclamp enough to flip Sephiroth around a couple of times within the first few turns. It's a shame that you don't get to see it, but I will certainly try Sephiroth again, and we'll try and go off quickly like we did in that first game. As for this one, I think we controlled all those Planeswalkers very nicely. I wasn't sure about keeping the Edict effects in that care about walkers, because Sephiroth cares about the destruction of creatures specifically, and especially with players quitting like it's going out of fashion. That obviously gives you fewer opponents that can sacrifice creatures into edicts, which makes it more difficult to flip Sephiroth around, but this game proved that we do need to have those Planeswalker edicts in here, just simply for the odd Planeswalker that's otherwise going to be difficult to deal with. So that's Sephiroth Fabled Soldier. Be sure to let me know if you want to see more from it. I am very much inclined to play at least one more game with it, so you'll have to let me know. There's plenty of legends to get through in Final Fantasy. Huge thank you to the patrons for their financial support of the channel as always. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.